Misfit, The Speed of Life and Death is nearing completion, and the main shots of the film have been filmed for the most part. And in the past few days, little Gilbert has been looking for suitable roads and beaches to shoot a scene where the male and female protagonists kiss. After a thrilling race to the death, the male and female protagonists have a sweet hug and kiss in the afterglow of the sunset, which couldn't be more beautiful. Similar shots will not go out of style even in another 20 or 30 years. Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock kissed after little Gilbert shouted start. This shot was filmed by little Gilbert for 3 days. Find the best, the most perfect angle, and use your own image optical aesthetics to compose the last scene of the film. Sandra Bullock and Keanu Reeves were obviously filming something, so this kiss was particularly good. Even if little Gilbert shouted, the two still had to kiss for a while before parting. It's quite normal to talk about boyfriend and girlfriend or temporary partners because of a movie. And the male and female protagonists are in love because of the play, which is also a propaganda point for Speed of Life and Death. Little Gilbert has figured out how to use the relationship between the two to make a scandal and hype up the movie and promote the movie. Of course, Disney and Warner's gossip tabloids are better at this than him, so there is no need to worry. After the filming of this scene, little Gilbert officially announced the completion of the crew. Everyone in the crew breathed a sigh of relief, and it was finally over. After entering the crew, I spent every day in the noise of explosions and drag racing, and no matter how much enthusiasm for work was consumed by these sounds. Knowing that the crew was tired, after the film was sealed and the equipment was put into storage, little Gilbert announced that a finale party would be held. The crew directly chartered a nightclub, and everyone also brought their respective partners over. Keanu Reeves even invited his good friends Riven Phoenix and Johnny Depp over, and also brought a lot of big *Kemp, as well as cocaine and other things. It seems that after a few months of filming in the crew, Keanu Reeves has been suffocated, and he can't help but take a sip as soon as he finishes it. So, around Keanu Reeves, Riven Phoenix, and Johnny Depp, many people who are happy to do this began to swallow the clouds. Little Gilbert doesn't touch these things himself, but he's not stupid enough to interfere in other people's lives. It's a job need in the crew, but now that the work is over, even if Keanu Reeves sucks it to death, it has little to do with little Gilbert. Maybe he died, which is still a good thing for the movie, and he can be used to win sympathy points. Of course, Keanu Reeves is looking good at the moment, and is not to the point of death. On the contrary, it was his friend Riven Phoenix, who obviously smoked too much and indulged too much, and he could see that he was tired. Little Gilbert knew a little better, knowing that the talented actor Riven Phoenix would die of a drug overdose soon after. But when he forgot, exactly. In this kind of party, which will not be open to the public, alcohol, big *Kemp, and sex are all indispensable things. Not to mention the Hollywood stars who came out from the bottom. Even Sofia Coppola, who was well-educated, couldn't help but run over and take 2 puffs. Little Gilbert didn't join in the fun. He was like a bystander, looking coldly at the changes around him and everything that happened. After a little chat with Charles Rowan and Kane Wexman, the 2 producers put their arms around a dancer and joined the carnival. Little Gilbert sat on a bar stool at the bar, drinking lemonade. "Why don't you go to the party?" Naomi Watts asked, sitting next to him with a cocktail in her hand. "Why don't you go?" Little Gilbert asked rhetorically. Naomi Watts looked at the revelry crowd and said, "Sometimes I feel like I and them are 2 worlds." Really? Little Gilbert seems to feel the same way. "I also feel that I don't fit in with the people around me." In this way, the 2 young artists stayed away from the carnival crowd and enjoyed the time with each other. "What will you do after Speed of Life and Death is finished?" Naomi Watts asked. Little Gilbert shook his shoulders, clinked glasses with the crew who came to say hello, and then replied, "I'm busy with post-production, and then there is the promotion of the film. A lot of things." After that, I think about it, little Gilbert thought for a long time and said, "Maybe I'll go on vacation after all. I've been busy with work for so long, and I need to relax." What about you? Naomi Watts finished her cocktail and said, "I'll probably play a supporting role in a couple of movies, and Sheena is giving me a chance." Okay, come on. Little Gilbert looked at the time, got up and took his coat. "It's almost time, I should go." "I'll go with you," Naomi Watts said, carrying her bag, and the two said to Charles Rowan before walking out of the bar around the revelry crowd. "Why don't you sit with me for a while?" "It's not far from that," Naomi Watts suggested. Little Gilbert readily agreed, and the two went to Naomi Watts' apartment together. As soon as she arrived at the apartment, Naomi Watts couldn't wait to pounce on her and expertly tug at the waistband of Little Gilbert's trousers. Little Gilbert took off his shirt and kicked the door with his heel, closing it. Then he put his hand on Naomi Watts' chin, looked into her blue eyes, and kissed her. Soon, following the trajectory of the clothes, the two had reached the battlefield in the bedroom. Before starting the workout, Naomi Watts pressed Little Gilbert. "Not going to Michelle to work out today?" "Nothing can stop me from exercising with you at this moment, dear." Little Gilbert rolled over and pressed the petite woman underneath. "Little Gilbert, you're so heavy. You hurt me," Naomi Watts exclaimed. It's just that this voice is melodious, and for Little Gilbert, it is an aphrodisiac. He was no longer reserved and began to do in-depth yoga exercises. After the completion of Speed of Life and Death, Little Gilbert devoted himself to post-work. 2 films in a row were big hits, although it didn't say that Gilbert Jr. got the final editing rights. But the film has been able to complete the editing work according to Gilbert Jr.'s expectations. Gilbert Jr. worked with editor Mehdi Thompson to edit the film. Mehdi, shorten this shot and insert the drawing of lens 83 at the same time, Gilbert Jr. said. Mehdi Thompson, an experienced editor, frowned when he heard this. "Little Gilbert, is the pace of the film we edited too fast?" "That's what I wanted, with fast-paced footage and editing, to give the audience more sensory stimulation," Gilbert Jr. said. "But isn't that illogical?" Logic, Mehdi, in the film industry, is the least logical, and if it were logic, Star Wars would not have appeared, Gilbert Jr. said. All right then. Mehdi Thompson had to do as Gilbert Jr. asked to finish editing the film. Charles Rowan, who was watching the work from the sidelines, asked, "Little Gilbert, in this way, the whole film will become a super long MV and commercial. Will the audience be easily exhausted and quit?" No. Quite the opposite. Shaoji shook his finger and said, "The audience sits firmly on the chair of the cinema, feels the adrenaline rush and themselves, and is reluctant to leave the big screen for a moment." Working with Gilbert Jr. for the first time, Charles Rowan's first feeling of Gilbert Jr. was that he was very confident, but he didn't expect Gilbert Jr. to be more confident than he thought. Perhaps it should be called arrogance. But I don't know why. Looking at Little Gilbert's confident appearance, Charles Rowan will feel inexplicable trust again. Today's Hollywood movies, although rampant in the world. But in terms of the pace of the film, the overall is still on the slow side. Fast-paced, thrilling, and dazzling enough is the biggest selling point of the film. Even if the logic of the story is flawed, Gilbert Jr. believes that the audience will pay for the film. Gilbert Jr. is busy with the post-production of the film, while Sandra Bullock's agent, Rory Toledo, is being questioned in the office of Michael Lowitz, the president of CAA. "I asked you to do the package service, but you said you can't? What can I do?" Mention conditions. What outrageous conditions can Little Gilbert mention? Michael Lowitz's angry saliva nearly drowned Rory Toledo. Rory Toledo argued, Mr. Ovitz, it's not that I didn't try, but I failed. Martin Bob, another partner of CAA, calmed Michael Ovitz and asked Rory Toledo with a pleasant face, "What did you say?" Rory Toledo replied in a whisper, "I went to Sheena Boone and persuaded her to go with her. But Sheena Boone said she was just an agent and didn't interfere with the rights of the Little Gilbert crew, so she turned me down." "You useless thing, if Sheena Boone could talk about Little Gilbert, she would have come by herself a long time ago and still use you to cooperate with her." Michael Ovitz was so angry that he threw the ashtray on the floor covered with woolen carpet. It wasn't loud, but it was enough to scare Rory Toledo. All right, Martin Bob waved as Rory Toledo out. Rory Toledo was relieved and quickly exited the office that had been depressing him. Now that the two giants of the CAA are beginning to discuss countermeasures, Martin Bob said, "Why don't we use our resources to stop Gilbert Jr.? Let him know that without our package policy, he wouldn't be able to get around in Hollywood." "How?" Michael Ovitz asked. "By digging up black materials, he constantly broke the news in the media, causing public disgust." Martin Bob suggested. "No." Michael Ovitz shook his head. "I found someone to check on Little Gilbert. He doesn't take drugs. He doesn't mess with women. He doesn't have illegitimate children, and he doesn't do anything to children. As for his rumored girlfriends, they can't play a role in discrediting. And what about his father? It's even more undesirable. The old Gilbert has been out of Hollywood for a long time, and you are expanding the contradictions." Michael Ovitz vetoed. "Now it's his son Gilbert Jr., who hasn't been in Hollywood for a long time, so you go and attack others. To put it mildly, it is a bit bottomless, and it is easy to become the public enemy of Hollywood." Martin Bob thought for a long time and then proposed, "I remember Keanu Reeves, the star of Life and Death, has a lot of bad habits. Michael, we can start from this." Michael Ovitz's eyes lit up. "This is an entry point. Has the release schedule of Life and Death been set?" "It was said to be in early May." Martin Bob replied. "So, do we have any movies released on this schedule?" Michael Ovitz asked again. Martin Bob thinks back to all the projects that CAA is responsible for, and one film comes to mind. Stallone starring The Heroes will also be released in May. "Well," Michael Ovitz clapped his hands, "and I'll take this film against Gilbert Jr.'s Life and Death. I heard that his new work is an action movie, but when I come across Stallone's film, I don't know what will happen." A sneer appeared at the corner of Martin Bob's mouth. "I guess I will die a terrible death." Why is Michael Ovitz so adamant about getting Gilbert Jr. under the CAA umbrella and implementing his package service? Speaking of which, this matter has something to do with Disney chairman Michael Eisner. Everyone knows that Michael Eisner and Michael Ovitz are childhood friends, and the two have always had a good relationship. What he didn't know was that Michael Ovitz greatly admired the vision of his friend Michael Eisner. During a meal between the two, Michael Eisner inadvertently revealed how much he valued Little Gilbert. This made Michael Ovitz, who is known for his shrewdness, smell it instantly, and he began to regret kicking out Sheena Boone's female agent so early. Also began to think about how to promote the packaging service to Gilbert Jr.'s crew, and then poach Gilbert Jr. and train him to become the ace director of CAA. Originally thought that by virtue of the name of CAA, he could casually make Little Gilbert submit to his feet. But unexpectedly, Little Gilbert didn't make a move at all, and Sheena Boone, the bitch, blocked CAA from the door. In that case, it is better to let CAA show off its muscles properly. Anyway, according to the plan, Gilbert Jr.'s Speed of Life and Death was originally in competition with the Mighty Mountains, in charge of CAA. Even if there is no such thing, the CAA will have to use some competitive means. In the film market, it is normal for films to compete and use each other's means in the same period. Even if Disney and Warner are behind Life and Death, CAA is not afraid. The only caveat is that it can't be scaled up. After all, CAA can't afford to be besieged by the two major film company giants. There is also an inherent set of unspoken rules for the competition between Hollywood companies. Everyone tacitly abides by the unspoken rules and does not break this set of unspoken rules. Play within the rules in order to survive in Hollywood for a long time. If you break the rules, you will be boycotted by Hollywood. Little Gilbert didn't know that CAA was thinking about him, and apparently, Sheena Boone didn't tell him about it. However, the female agent obviously knows CAA's style very well, and she also has acquaintances within CAA, and after hearing the news, she immediately asked Gilbert Jr. to discuss countermeasures. At present, CAA is ready to use Mighty Mountain to fight Speed of Life and Death. This film is starring Stallone. Are you confident? Sheena Boone was still a little worried. Little Gilbert took a sip of coffee and said, "In the fierce summer season, you have to face competition all the time. Even if there is no Mighty Mountain, there will be other movies. We're not afraid of competition, and I'm confident in the quality of the film." Hearing Little Gilbert say this, Sheena Boone was a little relieved. But she will still do the job she needs to do. During the promotion of the film, we will assist Disney and Warner Pictures, and in terms of media advantages, even Columbia Pictures and CAA are not as good as us. Sheena Boone said. Well, Little Gilbert nodded. I guess they'll be looking for Keanu Reeves' black material. You remind his agent. Be careful in the near future. Okay, I remember. Sheena Boone wrote down and talked about Naomi Watts' work. I got Naomi a couple of roles, mostly romantic comedies with small investments. The roles she plays are basically the third female and the fourth female, and the salary has risen a lot. It's a lot better than before, at the very least. She doesn't have to work in restaurants and bars anymore. Gilbert Jr. said, It's true that you won't be able to make ends meet. You can afford medical insurance, and you can afford to rent expensive dresses. But if you want to develop the best, it has to be Cameron Diaz. Since starring in The Grim Reaper, Cameron Diaz has received a lot of attention, with continuous film appointments and income from advertising endorsements. Her agent Dula blossomed, and she called out that she had found a treasure. Cameron Diaz is not a client of Sheena Boone's agency, so he doesn't pay much attention. However, ICM itself is very capable of functioning, and Cameron Diaz's rating within ICM has risen several notches and has been taken seriously. It is estimated that in the future, ICM will arrange several big projects for her. As long as it is as smooth as expected, there will be a few more big projects. Cameron Diaz's steps into Hollywood's first-line actress are solid. Gilbert Jr. had previously discussed with the two producers of The Crew and suggested that the film be advertised at the Super Bowl. Although there is no precedent, both Disney and Warner's publicity departments find the proposal very constructive. So, after a meeting, the producers asked Gilbert Jr. to cut out a 30-second trailer to put on the Super Bowl commercial. In this year's Super Bowl halftime show, world pop superstar Michael Jackson will make his debut on the Super Bowl stage. In fact, the superstar originally wanted to refuse, but the Super Bowl official told Michael Jackson that the Super Bowl would be broadcast live in many countries around the world. Michael Jackson turned down the Super Bowl schedule tracks, and he picked the songs himself. The last two songs are We Are the World and Heal the World, which convey their love to the world. Another reason is that in 1992, Los Angeles had just been hit by the Los Angeles riots that shocked the world, and the contradictions between various ethnic groups were unprecedentedly acute. In order to bridge the ethnic tension, Michael Jackson planned to hold his first concert in Los Angeles in 1993. At the same time, on the stage of the Super Bowl, we will convey the virtues of truth, goodness, and beauty to the United States and the world, and call on everyone to love peace and unity. It is because of this background that this Super Bowl stage has attracted much attention. When the incident happened, it was almost March and April, but little Gilbert was not too affected. The area where the riots took place is a gang-ridden neighborhood in Los Angeles, which can be said to be a realistic version of GTA. But there's no danger to the neighborhood near Hollywood, which is pretty safe. The day when the wealthy community is also affected, it is the beginning of the collapse of North American society. No matter how big the trouble is now, it will not affect its foundation. As an outsider, self-conceived, little Gilbert has always had a fun mentality. He is such a miscellaneous fish, and the media does not pay attention to him. On the contrary, those Hollywood stars in Los Angeles fled Los Angeles under the pretext of filming during that time, for fear of being caught by the media. This kind of thing, whether you answer or not answer, is a mistake. No matter how you say it, some people will be dissatisfied. It is also Michael Jackson who has the appeal and the ability to call people together. After the matter was revealed, in short, after the decision to advertise for the Super Bowl, Disney quickly contacted the Super Bowl broadcast official. The movie trailer was advertised at the Super Bowl, and this kind of business was the first time that the Super Bowl broadcast official received it. The Super Bowl broadcaster immediately realized that if the movie achieves good publicity results, then I am afraid that the Super Bowl will become an important publicity position for Hollywood movies in the future. This is actually a good thing for the brand promotion of the Super Bowl, so the Super Bowl broadcast officially agreed. The 30-second trailer was cut out quickly, which is not a difficult thing at all for a film that is full of great shots. As the advertiser, Disney got several tickets to the Super Bowl. Robert Iger gave the ticket directly to little Gilbert and asked him to bring his family or others to see it. Gilbert Jr. is not interested in American football, but he is looking forward to the halftime show of pop king Michael Jackson. So he invited his aunt's family in San Francisco to watch the Super Bowl halftime show together. There's nothing to hide from Hollywood, and soon the news of life and death, dropping a trailer at the Super Bowl, spread throughout Hollywood. Many Hollywood companies instantly realized that there was still this trick. Why didn't we think of it? Movies that intend to land in the summer file hurriedly contact the Super Bowl broadcaster to get an advertising space. But unfortunately, by the time they got in touch, the advertising space was gone. But it doesn't matter, just to see how well the advertising of life and death works. If it's good, it's estimated that there will be more Hollywood movies to be commercialized at the Super Bowl next year. Soon, in February, the Super Bowl was played in Chicago. Gilbert Jr. took his aunt's family to the Super Bowl audience and sat down. They are VIP private rooms, so they don't have to crowd the audience with ordinary audiences. But if you want little Gilbert to say that to watch the game, you have to go to the audience to have that feeling of watching the game. The game was boring for little Gilbert because he couldn't read American football. Gilbert Jr. thinks it's better to watch Michael Jordan play, although Gilbert Jr. doesn't like to play basketball either, but he knows a lot of stars, and it's no problem to be a Cloud fan. On the contrary, it was the brother-in-law John Mays, who watched it very energetically, although he was not a fan of the two teams, but he was very excited. But when the first half ended and the stage was set up at halftime, Gilbert Jr. knew that one of the greatest live performances in the history of pop music was coming. The show is preceded by the annual Super Bowl ad show. At the end of the first half, viewership on the stations broadcasting the Super Bowl began to rise, and it was exponential. The people on the TV station cheered excitedly, and the broadcast of this Super Bowl game was really worth it. Before the halftime show began, the TV station began to broadcast commercials. Zoe and Doug stayed in front of the TV early, and as fans of Michael Jackson, of course his performance had to be watched. However, the two of them watched the ad first. Every year in the Super Bowl commercials, you can see what is popular in the season, and it is very interesting to shoot. I've seen IBM computers, Lauder's Cosmetics, and Lamborghini's supercar commercials before, all of which are very interesting. Just when Zoe thought she was about to make a halftime show, a deafening explosion rang out. Zoe is startled, and a house is blown up on the TV screen. Dub, this seems to be movie trailer? Zoe couldn't believe it. The two are also senior viewers of the Super Bowl, but they have never seen the movie trailer released live in the Super Bowl. At this time, the subtitles flashed, and Doug involuntarily read out, "The latest works of the directors of Shark Beach and Death is Coming." Zoe, this is a new work directed by Gilbert Jr. Oh my God, Zoe said, covering her mouth. He's actually running a commercial at the Super Bowl. No one has done that before. Watching the explosions and drag racing scenes in the trailer, the dazzling editing, and the footage shot along with the tires, it all gives an adrenaline rush. Doug touched his uneasy heart and said excitedly, "The trailer of this film is so exciting, so cool. When will it be launched?" With the last explosion, the title of Life and Death flashed, and the release date appeared. The film will officially land in the North American market on April 30th. After watching the trailer, Doug couldn't get enough of it, and he said to Zoe, "This movie, we must go to the cinema to see it." Well, Zoe agreed, and make a lot of friends and go see it together. Zoe and Doug saw the trailer for Speed of Death at the Super Bowl, and according to later statistics, at least 40 million viewers tuned in to watch the Super Bowl during that time. This is the influence of Michael Jackson, and Life and Death, which released the trailer before his performance, has also been seen by so many audiences. This publicity effect is even better than Disney and Warner's estimates. As long as 10% of them are interested in the film, that's 4 million potential viewers. What's more, the trailer edited by Gilbert Jr. is very exciting, and Disney and Warner are very confident. The halftime show commercials passed, and soon it was the turn of Michael Jackson, the king of world pop, to perform on stage. To be honest, Gilbert Jr. is not a fan of Michael Jackson or something, mainly in his sensible era. Michael Jackson has long become a legend. For a rumored person, no matter how awesome he is, it is difficult to say that little Gilbert will fall in love with him. On the contrary, in the previous life, there were many people on the internet who pretended to be fans of Michael Jackson, but in fact, they didn't like Michael Jackson much at all, but they just wanted to appear to be very stylish. This kind of person especially likes to step on, such as fans who mock other stars. No matter how awesome your XXX is, can there be Michael Jackson? What the? You don't know Michael Jackson? Go home and go on the internet to see more. Mentally retarded. Fake fans like these are still active on the internet more than a decade after Michael Jackson's death. In this regard, Gilbert Jr. just wants to say, how can these fake fans say that they are fans of Michael Jackson? If you haven't experienced this era, how can you feel his legendary life, his great performances, and a benevolent heart? Others don't know, anyway. After watching the halftime show that is much more interesting than the game, Gilbert Jr. finally understands why Michael Jackson is the king of world pop music. It's a pity that the pop king suffered miserably in the next few years. But little Gilbert can't save him, and no one can save him, because it's not a one-person problem, it's the consensus of the mainstream white society that controls the right to speak. Although Gilbert Jr. is yellow-hearted, he is still white on the surface, even a squid, and he cannot stand up to the entire mainstream North American society. The Super Bowl ended, and many North American newspapers and television stations praised it as the greatest Super Bowl halftime show of all time. Michael Jackson's personal prestige and career reached the peak of his personal fame and career after this halftime show. But in the midst of the overwhelming boasting of Michael Jackson, some people also noticed the movie, Life and Death, that dropped a trailer at the halftime of the Super Bowl. After the Los Angeles Times reported on Michael Jackson's Super Bowl halftime performance on the front page, it said the Super Bowl trailer for Life and Death on the second page. After the performance of the king of world pop music has become popular all over the world, we should note the groundbreaking move of the upcoming film, Life and Death, this summer. The film ran a 30-second trailer on the Super Bowl halftime commercial, capturing the attention of audiences across the United States and around the world. The pioneering publicity method has played a very good effect. It's a lot of money, but it's still worth it. In an interview with Variety magazine, well-known producer Jerry Bruckheimer also mentioned the Super Bowl commercial for Life and Death. Gilbert Jr. and his Life and Death pioneered a new way of marketing Hollywood films, which has been recorded in film history ever since. One thing is for sure, in the next year, you'll see more Hollywood movie trailers dropped on the Super Bowl. I heard that this method was conceived by Gilbert Jr., who is really a genius in film marketing. I didn't know that after the Super Bowl commercial aired, the speed of life and death became the second most discussed topic after Michael Jackson. Disney stepped up its promotional campaign and began to lay a large number of offline ads, while continuing to run trailers on the rest of the TV show. All of them have one goal, which is to let as many audiences as possible know about Life and Death, so as to attract people to the cinema. When it comes to how to attract people, Gilbert Jr. is definitely a master at editing trailers. He then edited a 1.5-minute trailer and a 2-minute trailer, all of which were highlights. Then, in an interview with Sarah, a reporter for the Hollywood Business Daily, he revealed, "I can tell fans for sure that the trailer is not the whole story. There are also plenty of thrilling shots in the film, and the trailer is just the tip of the iceberg. If you want to know, go to the cinema and find out." Taking advantage of the Super Bowl, Gilbert Jr. managed to attract a lot of heat for himself and Life and Death. At this time, many people are curious about what this film that dares to advertise at the Super Bowl is, what the whole picture looks like. No, the interest in inquiry comes. As long as you are interested, it is possible to go to the cinema to watch it, and this box office is also available. Little Gilbert's hand. Not only did other Hollywood studios show a whimsical film marketing plan, but also scared CAA. After watching the Super Bowl, the two CAA giants, Michael Ovitz and Martin Bob, hurried to discuss countermeasures. What to do? Now, Speed of Life and Death has attracted more attention than Mighty Mountains. It's not Michael Jackson or Life and Death that is being discussed outside. Martin Bob worried. Michael Ovitz also had a headache. He didn't expect that young people nowadays have so many strange ideas, and this trick caught them off guard. But things are still turning around. Michael Ovitz thought for a long time and said, "The fact that the public is paying more attention to the film now is actually not a bad thing for us." How? Martin Bob wondered. Michael Ovitz explains, "The more heat you get, the more people you follow, and that's what makes the gossip tabloids action." Martin Bob instantly understood. "You mean, to hype up those black materials?" "That's right, it's time to act, and the hotter it is, the better the hype." Michael Ovitz looked confident. Martin Bob received instructions, exited the office, and hurried to do it. After the Super Bowl, Gilbert Jr. continued to be busy with post-production. But after the popularity of the trailer, many gossip tabloids began to pop up Keanu Reeves, Raven Phoenix, and Johnny Depp. Little Gilbert still heard the news from the mouth of his assistant Anna, and by the time he knew, the black news had already been flying all over the sky with the gossip tabloids. In an instant, all the film distributors who competed with Speed of Life and Death in the summer began to follow suit. Even Little Gilbert himself has become the target of black revelations. Although his little black material is nothing compared to Keanu Reeves's black material. In the face of such an incident, Disney and Warner urgently held a meeting to discuss countermeasures, and Gilbert Jr. also rushed to the meeting. At the same time, Keanu Reeves was also accompanied by his agent to the scene. Before the meeting, Gilbert Jr. had a conversation with Keanu Reeves. "Keanu, it's not your fault. Don't take it too seriously." Keanu Reeves just nodded and didn't say much, looking not in a very good mood. This is also normal. As long as you are a normal person, no one can stand someone scolding you in the newspaper every day and hacking you. The meeting was convened by Robert Iger, CEO of Touchstone Pictures, and Doug Walter, head of distribution at Warner Pictures. Now, there are a lot of scandals about Keanu Reeves. I want to ask everyone, what are your opinions? Robert Iger simply finished his opening remarks and left everyone present to express their opinions. Doug Walter spoke first. "First of all, we need to carry out urgent public relations, and some non-existent things need to be clarified in time." Keanu faced the media and kept silent to avoid being caught by the media by saying the wrong thing. Another executive suggested, "I think Keanu can go to the community to do some services, such as volunteering in welfare homes, and at the same time arrange for our media to report on it to save some image points." The executives expressed their opinions and quickly put together a workable plan for urgent public relations. Meeting. The PR manager told Keanu Reeves some precautions and asked him to do so. In the face of Disney and Warner, although Keanu Reeves is now famous, he is just a star and an actor. At the request of the film company, he must cooperate. Seeing that little Gilbert was silent, Robert Iger asked, "Little Gilbert, what do you think, and let me hear it." All the executives looked at Gilbert Jr., and they all knew that his Super Bowl advertising plan was very good at film marketing. So, in a similar crisis PR, everyone wants to hear what little Gilbert has to say. Little Gilbert looked at the keywords of the black material sorted out by the Public Security Department on the document and said, "I don't think these black materials are a big deal. Aren't everyone doing these things? Since they attack us with this, we should also attack them with this." "What do you mean?" an executive asked. Little Gilbert closed the papers, patted the table, stood up, and said loudly, "Since everything has been done, no one is innocent." In terms of media strength, will Disney and Warner be worse than them? What? Little Gilbert wanted to say. Everyone understood. Robert Iger naturally understood what little Gilbert meant. "Of course not. I understand what you mean. Arrange our media tabloids to dig up black material for me, and all summer movies, all of which are released in May, are our goals." Doug Walter glanced at all the executives and said, "Warner's side will fully cooperate with digging up the black material of other films, naturally excluding other films released by Disney and Warner Studios. Of course, Disney and Warner's tabloids will naturally not hack Life and Death." After the counterattack plan was determined, it was originally a group of film distributors besieging Life and Death, which soon turned into a melee. Today is that star once opened a silver party. The day after tomorrow is another star who has taken drugs, and the day after tomorrow is the indecent love of a certain star. In short, in March and April 1993, the North American entertainment sector evolved into a war of breaking black information with each other. There is a saying that when no one else does this, only you do, then you are wrong. But you're not alone. When everyone else does it, then you're not wrong. In fact, objectively speaking, Keanu Reeves's 3 friends are serious among a group of addicts in Hollywood. But if you do it, and the public only knows that you did it, but they don't know what the difference is in dose. As a result, the heat brought by the Super Bowl before turned into a black material war, which dragged other stars into the water. It's just that this incident hurt Keanu Reeves the most. According to data from a survey commissioned by Disney, more than 25% of the moviegoers interviewed said they would not go to the cinema to see the film because of the scandal. The Super Bowl has the good point, But the disadvantage is that the attention is also great, and a little thing is infinitely magnified, not to mention the black material that Keanu Reeves is carrying. Although other Hollywood stars have more or less been exposed to a lot of black material, the most serious ones are Keanu Reeves and the three Johnny Depp brothers. The three brothers are now like rats crossing the street, and if the internet is developed now, it is estimated that they would have been sprayed online by netizens. It is said that because of a lot of smears by the media, Raven Phoenix is not in a very good mental state, has not worked for a long time, and has to see a psychiatrist. After hearing about it, Disney's public relations department directly arranged for Keanu Reeves to be treated by a psychiatrist and then through media reports to win public sympathy. This trick had some effect, but what Disney didn't expect was that Raven Phoenix was not only depressed, he was really at the limit. Although Keanu Reeves cooperated with the crew and the publicity work of Disney and Warner, he was just coping with the work and was not too serious. The three of them are all such personalities and cynical, so they can play together. But on April 8th, more than 20 days before the film's release, Raven Phoenix was found dead at his home in North Los Angeles. For a time, the whole of Hollywood was shocked. In the battle of breaking the news against each other, Keanu Reeves and Raven Phoenix, as well as Johnny Depp, endured a lot of attacks and smears, and the psychological pressure was extremely great. A lot of details were then revealed, and according to Raven Phoenix's agent, Raven Phoenix had taken a lot of sleeping pills when he was heavily smeared by the media. Disney and Warner Pictures reacted quickly, realizing that this was an opportunity and rushed to contact Raven Phoenix's family and friends. Arranged by Disney and Warner, they were interviewed one by one, expressing their grief and accusations against the media that hurt Raven Phoenix. Raven Phoenix's girlfriend Martha Plimpton was interviewed by the media with tears in her eyes. Raven is always full of hope for life, and he once described to me our beautiful life in the future. We will have children in common, and he will go back and take the children to ride, fish, play. But now, with the death of Raven, it has all become a fantasy. Raven Phoenix's younger brother, Joaquin Phoenix, said angrily, "The media that hurt my brother are eating human blood bread, and there is no media morality. Although when you are alive, everyone fights to the death, and you can't wait for each other to have an accident tomorrow. But when something really happened, the media that had participated in the smearing of Sanjeev were silent. At this time, no one dared to go up and say that they deserved to die, or anything else. This society is very tolerant of the dead, and it is easier to arouse public sympathy if they continue to chase after it." Martha Plimpton's tears fell in time, and Joaquin Phoenix scolded well. The scene of the black material war was instantly quiet, and all the small newspapers stopped talking. On the contrary, Disney and Warner's media outlets posted several tributes to the talented actor Raven Phoenix, while changing the newspaper layout to black and white. At the same time, Keanu Reeves and Johnny Depp also appeared in public eye, and they were very emaciated. Ruefan's death really scared the two of them. Unlike the general public, who was depressed due to a lot of media smears and then overdosed on sleeping pills, the two knew the cause of Raven Phoenix's death. The Los Angeles Police Department's forensic autopsy report stated that Raven Phoenix had taken large amounts of hemp, cocaine, in doses 8 times the lethal amount. So it's true that those tabloid media are hacked, and Raven Phoenix is indeed an addict. Fortunately, because of speed of life and death, the Los Angeles Police Department has a good relationship with the crew and reported it to Little Gilbert as soon as possible, and Little Gilbert asked the police department not to disclose the autopsy report to the public. At the request of Raven Phoenix's family, the autopsy report was never made public. That's why it was rumored outside that it was because of the media's smearing, which led to depression and death, and threw the pot on those media. The media and the media distribution company behind it certainly knew that things were going on, but now the whole of North American society sympathized with Riven Phoenix and his family. Don't you dare to smear it anymore. What if you die again? And this incident had the greatest impact on Keanu Reeves and Johnny Depp, both of whom were depressed for many days and put down a lot of work. Keanu Reeves basically does not participate in the upcoming promotion of Life and Death, relying on Gilbert Jr. and Sandra Bullock, with Dennis Hopper on top. After all, he is a good friend who died, although he is to blame, but Gilbert Jr. did not force Keanu Reeves to participate in the publicity. He knew that Raven Phoenix would die, but he would never have thought that it was because of Keanu Reeves and Life and Death that his death was indirectly caused. Little Gilbert doesn't feel guilty. This matter has little to do with him, and it's not that he made Sanjeev's life chaotic. If this is fate, it is quite wonderful.